Whether you're a student returning to the classroom or an adult in the workplace, your ability to read plays a critical role in your upward mobility in our society. For some, literacy isn't a guarantee, which is why organizations such as Read to a Child are here to help bridge the gaps in how our kids are learning to read. Joining us now on the Megacast is the CEO of Read to a Child, Paul Lamoureux. Paul, thanks for joining us today.
Tyler, it is my pleasure to be here. I
Appreciate
always
it.
like talking about Read to a Child.
Yeah, and we love talking about this issue as well. Literacy is such a critical issue in all areas of our life and in ways that people really don't realize. So for those that aren't familiar with Read to a Child, tell us about the history and, of course, the mission of your organization.
Well, Read to a Child basically combines the magic of the read aloud and the power of positive mentoring. And one child, one mentor, 1 hour a week really provides all sorts of magical outcomes for the student in terms of literacy and socio-emotional well-being, self-confidence, self-esteem, all that. So it's really a twofold program, not specifically about literacy, but that's an important component. In 1989 in New York City, a Manhattan businessman visited a local classroom, under-resourced classroom, as is often the case in big cities, and saw the issue with the kids not being able really to read. So he gathered together 5 or 6 of his co-workers, brought them down at lunchtime and had them read aloud to the children in the program. So much research has been done on the power of the read aloud. It's one of those things that is not even in doubt that it's a powerful mechanism to help children's vocabulary and help them grow in terms of being lifelong lovers of reading, and that's a key driver for future success. But those 6 co-workers and Arthur Tannenbaum was the gentleman's name, then decided to go off and start their own nonprofit called Everybody Wins, because their thought was the students win, the volunteer readers win, the administration wins, the family wins, everybody wins. So for many years, the organization's name was Everybody Wins. It went to the greater Boston area and then started expanding. It's obviously New York, Washington, D.C., and then in 2006, some of these chapters of Everybody Wins decided to get together. Los Angeles, Greater Boston, Hartford, together we formed a larger organization and then renamed ourselves Read to a Child to be basically to say what we do. And since that point, we've expanded into Miami and most importantly into Detroit in 2012, as we saw the real issues with literacy in Michigan as a whole and in Metro Detroit specifically. And we've been growing our program in Metro Detroit since.
So you mentioned the literacy component is an important factor of this, but it's not everything in the mission of Read to a Child and what you do in communities all throughout the state of Michigan and around and beyond the state of Michigan as well. Talk about the read aloud mentor element of that and how beyond just helping a child learn to read or improve their reading skills, how that mentorship and how that relationship 1 hour a week with these kids can really have a greater impact on their life and on their development.
Yeah, I myself have read over the last 8 years that I've been with Read to a Child with 2 separate children, starting in 1st grade and reading all the way through 4th. So I know exactly how it feels to be a mentor. And I just finished with my 4th grader this last school year, so I miss him terribly right now. But you create that relationship, and just to have a caring adult show up regularly for a child, just for them, not for their friends, their cousins, their brothers, sisters, but for them and them only, is huge for their self-esteem, for their sense of being validated and valued and heard, which everybody wants to be. And they often might not get that anywhere else. So, and then when you do it week over week, year over year, you really build a strong bond. And then you're just sort of, you're a role model. You're showing them how it is to be in the world, and you're just showing up regularly. You don't have to have any extra skills to be a volunteer mentor in our program. Just be willing to show up for a child and being the caring adult that you are. So it's very powerful.
We're joined by Paul Lamoureux. He is the CEO of Read to a Child, joining us on the Megacast. You can find more information by visiting readtoachild.org. Readtoachild.org for more information, with locations in Boston, with operations in Boston, Hartford, Los Angeles, Miami, and of course in Michigan, in Detroit. Readtoachild.org for more information. And you can also call them at 781-489-5910. 781-489-5910. In terms of results, Paul, what are some of the outcomes that do come from having a child participating in Read to a Child and having that mentorship and, of course, that literacy training that is there once a week for an hour?
Yeah, so the school teacher who knows their child the best in the elementary school, and we ask those teachers to refer students into the program that would benefit from that one-on-one time and that need, and help, a helping hand with their literacy. So those children that are then referred in by the teacher are then assessed at the end of the year on 8 separate metrics, which include, improvement in vocabulary and then reading ability and listening comprehension, critical thinking, but then other things like have their self-esteem improved. And so it's that assessment that the teacher does for each student that tells us how well the student is progressing during that school year when they're participating in the program. So it's been very encouraging, the results. This past year, 78% of the children that participated in the program improved in all 8 of the categories that we measured, some literacy, some social emotional. So clearly it's having a positive effect on the children on both the literacy front and the well-being front.
Paul, if people would like to participate in this program, if they'd like to mentor a child, read with them once a week in any of your locations, but especially here in Michigan, how do they get involved and what sort of process do they go through to then be put into this program?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you go to the website, as you pointed out, there's a Get Involved button that you can click. And there are really 2 types of volunteers. One comes from a corporate partner where we have a whole bunch of people from a local corporation that come and read, or a community volunteer. And there's a process for each at our website. But the bottom line is you fill out an interest form. You know that the commitment is going to be once a week, and possibly you could be doing this virtually. You might not be going into the classroom. The pandemic changed everything for us. So we've been doing a lot of this mentoring over Zoom, just like we're here right today on Zoom. And that's been powerful. And the results I told you about were from Zoom mentoring. They're even more powerful when you get in person. But depending upon whether the school will allow mentors into the classroom or we keep doing it on Zoom, you'll have a commitment of either an hour, maybe a week, or maybe even 30 minutes if you're doing it on Zoom. And then you'll go through a background check. And then we have an online training that you do. And then you'll be matched with a student. And boy, is that a fun process when you get to meet your reading buddy for the first time, whether it's on Zoom or in person. And then you begin.
And then how long does that relationship then sustain itself for? Is that for one school year, or could that be for years beyond that?
It could. I mean, we ask that a mentor commit to a year. Ideally, they're going to stay with the student right through the end of 4th grade. We know how important it is to get students reading by 4th grade, which is why the whole Michigan 3rd grade law in Michigan came about. But if you can only do it for 1 year, that's 1 year well served for the student. Most folks, once they start for a year, they do anything they possibly can to stay with the child. Many people have left the job they were at with our corporate partner, gone somewhere else, and because of Zoom, wherever they are, they could keep that relationship going, which has been fantastic.
We're joined by Paul Lamoureux. He is the CEO of Read to a Child, with us on the Megacast. Read to a Child, with locations in Michigan, in Detroit. Can be found at readtoachild.org, readtoachild.org for more information. Beyond the volunteer aspect of it and the mentoring aspect of being involved with Read to a Child, what are some other ways that at this time that would be important for our audience to know about how they can help Read to a Child continue its mission across the U.S., but especially right here in Detroit?
And it's also important to note we're in a few schools in Pontiac, and our program in Pontiac will continue to grow as well. But donating, as I mentioned earlier, we have volunteers that are from the community, and then we have volunteers that are part of a corporation. Corporations also typically fund us. 20 volunteers come and participate in a school, and then they'll give us X amount of dollars in order to operate our program. But when community volunteers are in the schools, we're always looking for other sources of funding. So donating is the biggest way that anyone can help us. And if you go to our website, you'll see donate buttons as well. The other thing is to just let people know about Read to a Child, be ambassadors for us. Who knows who works at what corporation, and that corporation might be interested in foundational support for children in their community. And we're a great opportunity for that. So we'd love to talk to any representative of corporate social responsibility or human resources at any organization in Metro Detroit and show them how they can help. Finally, we have a day coming up in October called National Read to a Child Day. It's October 20th. We'll be doing events, read aloud events all over the country. But I encourage everyone on that day and every day, really, to find a child, an appropriate child, pick up a book and read to them. That is just going to have immeasurable benefit to both you and the child moving forward.
Paul, appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Great to be here.